Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, where today, for your viewing pleasure, we have Connor Gaming for the win in the Italian Tier 10 heavy cruiser, the Venezia. This is an almost all Tier 10 battle here on the North map. It's domination mode. I say almost all Tier 10. There's only one Tier 9 on each team. Connor's team have a Fletcher, the enemy team have an Ostjotland. There are two Tier 8s though, probably feeling very sorry for themselves with this matchmaking, although some of them probably a bit more than the others. Both teams have an Akizuki, the Tier 8 destroyer. And let's face it, if you're going to get up-tiered, be in a destroyer, because they can't shoot at what they can't see. And there's no carrier, so hooray for the destroyers. Although they will have to be careful of radar, both teams have a Des Moines. There's a bit of, I don't know if you're paying attention to the chat window. Yes, this is the North American server. The friendly sub started it off by suggesting that they all give peace a chance. Everyone's getting into the spirit of things. Some of the responses are pretty good. How can there be peace when you're all red? Somebody else saying, sure, we'll give peace a chance. Come closer. I'll give you a piece of my torpedoes. You got to love the chat in the North American server. Back to the matchmaking, however, because the Akizukis are not the only Tier 8s in this battle, and if you're going to get up-tiered, be a destroyer for all the reasons that I already mentioned. The other two Tier 8s in this battle, not so much luck, because they're both battleships. Connor's team have the Tier 8 Odin, the enemy team have the Tier 8 North Carolina, so good luck to those guys staying undetected. Well, things are about to start heating up dramatically, and before that happens, because I have to pay the bill somehow, it's time for a mention of the sponsor of today's video. I'm very happy to be able to announce that today's video is sponsored by Opera GX. You can try it for absolutely free today by supporting the channel and downloading Opera GX at operagx.gg/jingles2 or just clicking the link in the video description. Opera GX is the browser that's optimized for gamers. It's faster and it uses less system resources than certain other browsers. Google Chrome, we're looking at you here. The GX control button at the top of the sidebar on the left, amongst a bunch of other things, allows you to limit exactly how many of your resources are consumed by the browser rather than the games that you're playing, which ensures that when you log in for a session of World of Warships, the game doesn't turn into a slideshow because your 15 open browser tabs are hogging all of your system RAM and memory. The feature I think is best about Opera GX though is the way that they've integrated AI, including ChatGPT, into enhancing and refining the way you go about getting search results. Want to watch the latest Dune movie to celebrate your birthday before it ends its run in the cinemas? Harrier, the AI search agent, can help you with that. But there's more. With the integration of ChatGPT directly into the browser, you're able to use it to get something way better than just a simple series of search results. Like, for example, challenge Opera GX to come up with a gift suggestion for a certain female friend who happens to be into games. Not a problem. What a time to be alive. That is amazing. If you have Opera GX and you're not already taking advantage of these features, then just click the settings button, go to features, and activate the AI services features. And then you can always hop over to GX Corner and select from one of thousands of Opera mods, all of which completely change the look and sound of your desktop, are 100% customizable, and you can even create your own. And if you don't have Opera GX, what are you waiting for? It's free, and you can try it free today. And you can support the channel by getting your copy of Opera GX from operagx.gg/jingles2 or just clicking the link in the video description below and breaking up with basic browsers. Now then, back to Connor and the ship he's sailing, the Italian Tier 10 extremely heavy cruiser, the Venezia. Let's start by listing the bad things about this ship. Don't worry, that won't take very long. Probably the worst thing about the Venezia is her concealment. Yep, he's already spotted. This ship has a base surface detection range of 15.27 kilometers. I mean, that is terrible. Its air detection range isn't that much better, at nearly 10 kilometers, although that won't be so much of a problem in this match because there isn't an aircraft carrier. Well, there it comes, incoming fire. Yep, North Carolina's just fired at him. And here's our first surprise of the match, because there's clearly a destroyer in that smoke screen. And it's the Minotaur on the team who's just popped his radar. That's right, nobody expects a radar Minotaur. Extremely bad news for... there it is, boom, headshot. First kill of the match, already. One Tier 9 destroyer deleted. He's still spotted, of course, because he just fired his guns, and that means there's somebody within the firing range of the guns, 17 kilometers, who can still see him. Oh, very suspicious looking smoke screen down there. Actually, since he's running, clearly running Luigi Sansonetti as his captain on this ship, because he just scored a kill, and that activated the far reach talent, specific to that unique commander, which means his guns now have an extra 8% firing range, and they're now shooting out to a range of 18.5 kilometers. Although he's got a spot and plane up, so they now have a 22-kilometer range. Unusually for an Italian heavy cruiser captain, he's not just exclusively relying on the semi-armor piercing ammunition that he used to obliterate that Oosterjotland. Yep, there it is. Triple citadel. He's actually switching to the armor piercing. These cruisers don't get any high explosive ammo. They get semi-armor piercing instead, which is generally a reliable ammunition choice. But it's not going to do the same damage as a citadel hit with the armor piercing shells. And it looks like he did just score a triple citadel on the Smolensk over there. The Smolensk, of course, infamous for being so badly armoured and narrow that battleships 16-inch and higher armour-piercing shells just overpenetrate without the fuses arming. That doesn't happen with cruiser armour-piercing. There has just been a brief exchange of kills, which I'll summarise for you. Oh, there's the enemy Smolensk, not looking very happy. The friendly Smolensk did just get a kill on the enemy Tier 10 submarine, the Gato, although not before the Gato was able to get some torpedoes away and shortly afterwards sank the friendly Odin. Also, the enemy Des Moines managed to get a devastating strike on the friendly Fletcher. So at the moment the kills are... No, wait, they're not. The other enemy destroyer, the Forrest Sherman, just gunned down the friendly Smolensk. Wow, that's got to be embarrassing for the Smolensk. So the enemy team are ahead 1 kill. Actually, no, they've just killed the Republic. Make that... The enemy team are now ahead 2 kills, and they have a substantial points lead. In fact, they have about double the point score of Connor's team. But they do not yet have any cap circles. Connor's team was... Will you stop dying? What is going on? The enemy team are now ahead 3 kills. And while they still don't have a cap circle, they are in the process of flipping the cap circle at Alpha. And the Akizuki and the Minotaur over there are probably not going to be able to do an awful lot about it. Remember, the Minotaur doesn't have a smoke screen. He used his radar earlier, and the Akizuki over there with him isn't really in a position to give him a smoke screen, so we're probably about to lose a Minotaur too. More citadels on the Smolensk, but still no kills. The Akizuki over at Alpha isn't just abandoning the friendly Minotaur to his fate though, he's managed to get some torpedoes away and has sunk the Schlieffen who is charging the Minotaur down, but... well, it's not going to be enough to save him, so the Akizuki's going to have to look after his own ass from here on in. Yep, the Minotaur's gone down. Meanwhile, Connor raining some semi-armor piercing down on the Grosser Kurfürst over there. That Des Moines is going to have to be really careful. Oh, why would you get broadside like that to a Grosser Kurfürst? Okay, well, it wasn't immediately fatal, but it wasn't good either. More bad news, the enemy team have now taken the cap circle at Alpha and in the process of taking the central cap at Bravo, which up until now has remained uncontested, but there's absolutely nothing there to stop them, so hell, why not? Connor, conscious of the fact that, well, they've just sunk the Minotaur. They can see the Akizuki because somebody's shooting at him. So he kind of needs to support the Akizuki because once they either kill it or lose sight of it, they're going to turn around and start focusing on him. The team do catch a couple of breaks here because whoever was flipping that central cap at Bravo, and I think it might have been that North Carolina. Oof, yeah, that hurt. They're no longer flipping the cap. Also, the team have just managed to score a couple of kills, with the friendly Preußen finishing off the Grosser Kurfürst with its secondaries and the Shikishima scoring a killing shot on the enemy Des Moines. What I don't want to do here is say that this is the pivotal point in the battle, although technically it is because the team have just clawed back a couple of kills and they're now within spitting distance of the enemy team's points lead. But what I don't want to do is point the finger at the North Carolina over there, who was flipping the cap, completely undetected, and if he hadn't shot at Connor, and to be fair again to the North Carolina, it's basically impossible for him at this point to know exactly how this battle was going to end, and Connor was just sitting there broadside on in a cruiser, and he did do a fair amount of damage to Connor. But the fact that he nearly had the cap and then gave it up in order to get some shots out, it's going to be important. Connor, despite the paddling that he gave him earlier, just not able to get the kill on that Smolensk. The friendly Akizuki's clearly gone undetected. Everybody's focusing Connor down now. which could be very dangerous because, I mean, the Venezia isn't a badly armoured cruiser, but it's not a battleship, it is still just a cruiser. Enter the friendly Shikishima, a closer target to the enemy, a bigger target than Connor, and a slower target and therefore easier target to hit than Connor, starts taking some of the enemy fire instead. I'm sure Connor's grateful, but that's going to be bad news for the Shikishima. He's managed to go undetected, but, well, he's not going to stop shooting while the Shikishima's getting pounded, so he's switching his fire to the North Carolina. It's probably the easiest thing to kill, and right at the moment it's the only thing he can actually see to shoot at. Oh, the Shikishima is getting absolutely clapped. Just look at the hail of fire being directed. Yeah, he's dead. There's no way he's surviving that. It's only a matter of time. Yep, he's gone down. The enemy team are now more than 40 points ahead, and it's not the North Carolina down there in that cap circle. He is now actually outside of the cap circle border, so even though Connor scores a hit, it doesn't do anything to reset the capture progress. The enemy team now have 2 caps. However, the Akizuki managed to do what Connor could not, and he has sunk the Smolensk with some torpedoes. They're now ahead on points and they're even on kills, but they're going to need to capitalise on this quick by maybe killing the North Carolina over there, because with 2 cap circles the enemy team are going to catch up quick. For some reason the North Carolina is actually advancing into enemy gunfire. It's possible that he knows that the Gearing and the Preußen are coming around the corner of the island behind him and he doesn't want to get caught in a crossfire. It's also possible he just wants to get some shots into Connor. So Connor activates the high-speed smoke and manages to deftly avoid the incoming 16-inch armor-piercing salvo from the North Carolina. With the high-speed smoke activated, remember in these things it doesn't make you invisible because the smoke firing penalty is a thing, and a heavy cruiser with 8-inch guns has a massive smoke firing penalty. But the North Carolina is so far away that he can still remain undetected, even firing his guns from the safety of this smoke. Oh, there goes another captain talent. That's the Concealed Reserves talent, which you activate with this captain after achieving 100 main gun battery hits, so all of his consumables now last 10% longer. And then, as Connor starts angling out of his rapidly depleting high-speed smoke to take on the enemy Mecklenburg, the friendly Gearing takes out the enemy Jinan, and the Des Moines finishes off the North Carolina. Connor's team now have a 2-kill lead. They're flipping the cap at Bravo, denying the enemy team any further points from it, and they're almost 200 points ahead. Or at least they were, until the torpedoes that the Jinan had landed on the Preußen finish him off with a flood. But still, this is looking pretty good. If you can just avoid being nuked by, well, those two. Let's not forget, the enemy team also have a Colbert, a French cruiser, although where he is right now is anybody's guess. He hasn't been seen for a while. I'm sure Connor and the rest of his team are all hoping he's AFK, but, well, no, we're not going to be that lucky. Connor's still ducking and weaving and trying to avoid return fire from the Mecklenburg while keeping it up himself. And the Colbert just popped up, spotted by the friendly Gearing, who's flipping the cap circle at Bravo. Not that much of a problem for the Gearing because the Colbert doesn't have radar, and hopefully the Gearing still, if the Colbert gets close enough, has a couple of charges of smoke. The Forrest Sherman has gone down. Hang on, what's the Gearing? Oh no. The Gearing was shooting at the Mecklenburg, apparently blissfully unaware that an enemy light cruiser had just popped up 8 kilometers to his south. So the Colbert just smashed the Gearing, which means the enemy team still control that central cap at Bravo. Well, shit. The friendly Akizuki, who is shadowing the Mecklenburg over there as Connor and the Des Moines catch him in a bit of a crossfire, presumably... Oh wait, no, he started shooting. It's perfectly fine. The Mecklenburg's focusing on the Des Moines, and he's probably going to slip into that cap circle at Alpha once it's safe to do so. Just gave a very, what I assume was a sarcastic well done to the Gearing in chat. Yeah, that seems fair. I mean, if we're being completely fair here, because I did kind of point the finger at the North Carolina earlier, who screwed up taking the cap circle, because the Gearing just did exactly the same thing. I mean, let's just say I'm sure that by the time you see how this battle ends, don't skip to the end, wait for it. By the time you see how this battle ends, you'll all have plenty to discuss in the comments, arguing over exactly who you should be pointing the finger at. Anyway, looks like the Akizuki's managed to get a fire started on the Mecklenburg as he... I mean, the Mecklenburg's doing the right thing. He's linking up with the Colbert and he's getting out of line of fire. of as many ships as he possibly can by ducking in behind the island there, while returning fire at Connor. We haven't actually mentioned the Venezia's firepower yet, have we? It's substantial. While it does have a slow reload, this thing has 15 8-inch guns. And yeah, the reload's slow, but it has 15 8-inch guns. That's right, Akizuki, he's going to need every one of them to salvage this mess, because the Mecklenburg just killed the Des Moines. The Akizuki, by the way, as predicted, because he's capable of thinking and breathing at the same time, is flipping the cap at Alpha. So, enemy team are ahead on points, but the Akizuki is flipping the second cap and should have it under control within, well, not much longer. It's a battleship and a cruiser versus a cruiser and a destroyer. The good news is the enemy team don't have any radar. So you can see that Connor's having himself a bit of a think here as he turns away from the enemy team there in the central cap at Bravo, because they're behind on points at the moment, but they're not that far behind on points, and the Akizuki has just taken the cap at Alpha, so they're going to catch up quick. Do they just play it out, run away, take the points, win? It's going to take them 6 minutes until the end of the battle, or however long it takes them to reach 1,000 points, with 2 caps, whichever comes first. Probably the end of the battle timer, because they were only at 500. And they could do that. I mean, the Akizuki's not a particularly fast destroyer, but it's faster than a Colbert and a Mecklenburg, and the Venezia is a very fast, heavy cruiser, so they could certainly run. There are a couple of issues with that tactic, though. The Akizuki won't have any problem staying undetected. Connor might, because the Colbert definitely outspots him and isn't that much slower. And he only outspots the Mecklenburg by 2 kilometers. And the Mecklenburg's not that much slower either. And there's not an awful lot of map available with this kind of surface detection range for him to run away to. Plus, what if the enemy team go for the cap circle at Charlie? Because if the enemy team flip that, you're in all kinds of trouble. So between them, they've decided, and it's the Akizuki taking the initiative here, they're going to go for it and hope that the enemy team are going for the cap circle at Charlie. They're going to be keeping a careful eye on that, hoping that the Colbert is maybe split off to go and do that, while the Mecklenburg stays to defend Bravo. The Akizuki is going to spot, and sure enough, somebody is flipping the cap circle at Charlie. And the Mecklenburg, in an effort to spot some anti-aircraft tracer, has launched his torpedo depth charge attack planes, and of course, because Connor is in a cruiser and cruisers don't turn their secondaries off, well, I mean, it doesn't give the enemy team that much information. The Akizuki, that's right, Akizuki, not you Akizuki, that Akizuki, the other one. Yeah, the friendly Akizuki hasn't given his position away by blatting away with his anti-aircraft guns. And he's trying to spot the Mecklenburg for Connor here, because Connor's going to have to do the heavy lifting. Don't forget the Akizuki only gets 1 torpedo launcher, although it does get a torpedo reload booster, and there's the Mecklenburg. Connor's put his own spotting aircraft up. We know the Colbert, although he might be in shooting range, he's not here, because he's flipping that cap circle at Charlie. And thanks to the Akizuki spotting, he's able to get this semi-armor piercing salvo out without being detected. At the speed he's going, though, that's the only shot he's going to get before he slips into line of sight, and that, of course, is why he activates his second use of his high-speed smoke, which, remember, now lasts 10% longer. And because the Mecklenburg's so far away, he can keep firing without having to worry about his smoke firing penalty. The Mecklenburg has nothing to shoot at here, so he's decided that it's time to get the hell out of Dodge, which, honestly, is the right thing to do, because he doesn't want to die here and give Connor's team some unnecessary points. It's not just Connor shooting at him that the Mecklenburg needs to worry about. The Akizuki's closing in, and the Akizuki has torpedoes. So even if this means giving up the central cap to Connor's team, the Mecklenburg needs to stay alive so that they can take it back. And for that, he's going to need the assistance of the Colbert, so bugging out is absolutely the right thing for this guy to do. Connor, well, he needs to be aware of 2 things. One, his smoke's about to expire. And is he going to risk continuing to shoot at the Mecklenburg? Well, he is. But, even though it got him spotted, there's nothing the Mecklenburg can do, because he instantly pops out a line of sight behind the island. But here comes the Colbert. because he had just finished flipping the cap at Charlie, and he's coming back. Which is not so much of a problem for Connor, but it's definitely a problem for the Akizuki. Now, the Akizuki is holding his nerve, and he's backing off while... I mean, he's been forced out of the cap circle, thanks to the presence of the enemy light cruiser, but Connor instantly switches to the biggest threat to the Akizuki's well-being. You might be thinking, well, why didn't the Akizuki just smoke up? Well, he needs to keep spotting the Colbert for Connor, and you can't do that from inside a smokescreen. See, the Akizuki could have stayed inside the cap circle while inside a smoke, because the Colbert doesn't have radar, but then Connor wouldn't have anything to shoot at. So, oh shit, and he's been spotted. Akizuki, if you've got a smokescreen, now's the time to use it. He does have a smokescreen. He got smacked by the Colbert. But he managed to get the smoke up in time. And of course, because the Colbert fired, he's now visible to everybody. And any light cruiser that gets caught in a crossfire between a Venezia and an Akizuki is gonna die. That's great news. The Akizuki can now get back into that cap circle, and the Mecklenburg isn't going to want to try to challenge a destroyer for possession of a cap circle. Certainly not with a Venezia providing 15 8-inch semi-armor-piercing shell Overwatch. Oof, and there's the high caliber award. He didn't quite get the Mecklenburg, but he doesn't need to get the Mecklenburg. The Akizuki just needs to get into that cap circle. The Akizuki might need to get into the cap circle a bit faster than that, though. He's reversing into it. I mean, that's kind of fair, because he did have to motor on out of there in order to attempt to avoid being spotted by the Colbert, while continuing to spot him for Connor. And the Akizuki is not a particularly fast or manoeuvrable destroyer, so reversing into the cap circle may have been the fastest way to do it. But, looking at the scores, with the enemy team for a fraction of a second, every 3 seconds being 3 points ahead, it might have been too slow. And I need to pause things at this point, just so you understand how desperately unlucky that Mecklenburg was. He just got spotted at a range of 15.8 kilometers. That's too far away for Connor to see him. It's the Akizuki who spotted him. Now, the Akizuki's 4.5 kilometers away from Connor. I don't know exactly how far away the Akizuki was from the Mecklenburg, because angles and trigonometry and maths is hard, but I can make an educated guess based on the Mecklenburg's surface detection range. The Mecklenburg's a battleship. It doesn't have great concealment, but its base surface detection range is 17.1 kilometers, well within the 15.8 kilometers distance between Connor and it. However, you have to assume that the captain has the concealment expert skill, and it's also running the concealment module. These two factors combine to reduce its surface detection range by 20%, or, in this case, about 3.5 kilometers, which means the Mecklenburg's actual concealment is more something like 13.6, 13.7 kilometers. I don't have a Mecklenburg, I don't know this for sure. Anybody who does, feel free to give me the exact figure in the comments. But what this means is that the Akizuki, who's a couple of kilometers closer, literally spotted him at the last available second, lighting him up for Connor, allowing him to get that 15-gun, 8-inch semi-armor-piercing salvo away with 20 seconds of the battle remaining, and the enemy team 3 points ahead. Which, of course, means that it didn't really matter what the North Carolina did in the cap circle, whether he'd flipped it a minute earlier than he did or not, because it doesn't matter how many points the enemy team have, once they're all dead, you win anyway. Connor and the Akizuki, of course, getting the win there, with 181,000 damage done, 7 citadels, mostly at the expense of the enemy Smolensk. Connor managing to activate all 3 of his special commander skills during the course of that battle, and the Akizuki, the tier 8 destroyer, proving what I said at the start of this video: if you're going to get up-tiered in a game of World of Warships, be in a destroyer. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's battle. Hope it kept you guessing right up until the end, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.